All right, we're rolling, people. We are going to get raw and going to get real today about some things that are weighing heavy on a lot of us. And this is going to be something that I think we just cut raw and put out on YouTube and share. So I'm Taylor Shanklin. We've got Jen Frazier on the line, and we've got Najeed Kassam. Hey guys, how you doing?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's get real. Najeed, you put an op-ed up on LinkedIn this week talking about everything that's happening in our world, all of the violence that's breaking out, the uncovering of so much racism that some people, I think, didn't realize was still in such great existence. Tell us kind of what was behind that piece and like where you are right now in your head today.
Yeah. So, I think firstly, thank you for having me on today. It's been a tough week, but in some ways, and it sounds strange to say it, but it's also been a week that to me feels like something actually might happen. There might be something new, something that changes. I think I was able to put together some of my thoughts. They're not great, but they're there in an op-ed this weekend. As a person of color, I want to be clear, I'm not a Black person. I have no idea the struggles that the Black community in the United States and here in Canada and all across the world have been through. I don't have a history that has that kind of weight and persecution and denial. And so I can't possibly speak to that. But, the week has clearly showed that there's so much ignorance that exists. And I think that the protests, of which 99.99% are peaceful, are the only way that some people know to shed light on an issue that so many of us have felt for a really long time, through our family and our friends, through our colleagues, and through the learnings that we've had. And so I'm tired, but I'm also a little bit hopeful because it feels like a precipice. It feels like something could actually happen, and so that's there may be some beauty that comes out of all of this. And that's the hope that I really do hope that it comes about.
What do you think is there though? Like, I feel the same way, and I'm trying to kind of in my own mind sort of figure out like, gosh, I really, mostly because I think deep down I'm an optimist, whatever. I keep thinking that good will prevail. And I keep thinking, okay, maybe this time it will be different. I am 100% shocked that anyone could actually claim to be shocked at this level of racism still exists. I'm like, really?
But I actually addressed that in that conversation, yeah. and I think sadly I'm not shocked.
Right.
It's blissful ignorance is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. Cognitive dissonance and all these kinds of things. As long if we are humans, we can convince ourselves of almost anything, anything. And this is something that we've been, as a society in the United States, here in Canada, we've been convincing ourselves for hundreds and hundreds of years, and so it's so deep that when you dig it up, it's like, wait, that wasn't there. Like, we don't know what's in our backyards, but we really do know what's in our backyards. And I think that's the sad, scary reality, but you got to dig it up eventually, or it's just going to come up, and now it's coming up, right?
You go through 8 years of Obama and you think, okay, great. Like I know we're not obviously, even in my foggiest whatever, I'm like, I know we're not there, but we're making some progress. But I obviously am like, oh, I have an extended family that doesn't think like I do at all. I'm not going to speak to their, beliefs and everything. I don't know everything 100%, but it is clearly not in line with a lot of my thinking. And I know that it's there and it's pervasive, but it's almost like, God, it's good and bad and horrible and needed and all these other things that then when you know, Trump comes in and like shines a, not just shines a light, but like lifts up and empowers that, you're like, oh Jesus, like I knew it was bad. I guess I kind of, maybe I had a little bit of a moment of not knowing how bad maybe, but then I'm like, wow. And then but to me, there's also that piece of like, maybe folks that were just sort of benignly racist, I guess. It's sort of just sort of like whatever. And then went, oh, it's okay now again, or whatever, to now act in this way or speak in these ways, or kind of align myself now in a space that I felt like before maybe was not okay, but now I'm hearing and seeing things that maybe were sort of a little bit more repressed in a way that feels like it's a little bit more acceptable. And then suddenly you're like, whoa, 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 people. And then it just, you know, I mean, we have obviously many.
But I think we have to be careful. I think a lot of us don't know our own biases. And I think that's the more dangerous part. So everybody on this conversation has biases that we don't know, right? And it's our responsibility as members of a democracy, ultimately, to actually go and search for those biases and fix them, realign ourselves, educate ourselves, build dialogue. And I think, you know, we all know each other from the work in the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit sector is the dialogue sector. We're supposed to, you know, civil society, some of my graduate research was on the importance of civil society to strengthening democracy. And I think that our democracies need honest, open dialogue. And when we start to move away from that, and even during the Obama years, we did it, and even during every best era, we've done it, that it's gone deeper and deeper under the rug, right? And so I think one of the things that, pardon me?
You can't just hide it, you know?
Exactly. And you can't, ultimately, it's gonna show, and this maybe is one of many moments of showing, right? And I think what's incredible is the timing is fascinating, because we've been all stuck in our houses for 2 months. Some of us in tiny little apartments, others of us in bigger space, but ultimately we've shelter in place, quarantine, whatever the heck you want to call it. We've been here and we've been pent up, but this is a community that's been pent up for centuries, right? And we're going crazy. I can't even imagine what it's been like if it's been 250 years. So I think part of the interesting, the precipice moment for me is that we have been inside and we realize that how suffocated we feel. And maybe some of us can actually begin to converse with folks from peoples of colors communities and say, hey, look, you guys have been like this for centuries. And there's implicit benefit that we all gain from a society that helps some and not others, right? And I'm a capitalist, and I'm really clear about that. I love the markets. I really believe in them. But I also believe that there's more to it. We got to build a system of opportunity, right? And to do that, we've got to address underlying existing bias, that both societally and individually.
Yeah.
So
sorry,
go ahead.
go Taylor, but then the moment of like, what is it? Again, I feel like maybe then there is something different. Certainly I guess the level of conversations that I sort of feel are already happening are deeper, different, more kind of getting at the root of some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that has been different versus just outrage. It's already, I think for me, at least what I'm seeing is sort of past the outrage is the like, all right, this is enough. Like we need to get serious about this. But I don't know if there are examples or things that you've seen already that help you feel like kind of you opened with, I feel like that this time it might be different.
Yeah. And you know, I think ironically, it's actually the white people that have given me hope. Not all of them, in fact, not most of them, but some of them. And it's you see a ton of folks that have talked about white privilege as privileged white people. And I've never seen that before, ever. I'm talking like NFL coaches and executives and CEOs, not all of them, not most of them, but a couple of them who have been like, hey, wait, like I was ignorant. I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And my first thought is, of course you should have known, like you're an idiot. But then, okay, but that's forgiving. That's not productive, right? So if that begins, and then we can actually see action from it, there's going to be an incredible opportunity, unless they're like, oh yeah, I didn't know. And then they go back to doing what they did exactly before, and then nothing will change.
Right. I think that's the hope, is that it just takes a few people have to see the example. And it does take a few of those to first step into that uncomfortable space, admit, but also, yeah, commit to doing something, not just
And we need to see our leaders doing it. And I don't just mean political leaders.
Yeah.
I mean leaders in business, leaders in civil society, yes, leaders in politics. And
Yeah.
People follow the actions of their leaders. People emulate, leaders are exemplars. And so we have to look to those leaders, to those of us who have a voice. I have a very small voice. Some people have very big voices, to begin processes and conversations of real change. And I think if we aren't leading, whoever those leaders may be, I think no matter how engaged the people are, no matter how much this is a moment, it'll fall away.
Right.
And honestly, as much as, we all want to blame one or two people who are very visibly such, this isn't just about that. It's almost too easy to blame folks, right?
It's systemic, and that's so much harder.
Yeah. It is.
Inherent, it is there. I know, back to some of the things you said, like it's unknown. And so you're kind of like, oh no, this is deep, and it is pervasive, and it is right at the root of everything. And sort of like, yeah, just being like, you're bad, or you're bad. That's not what this is about. This is all the way down to the ground. Exactly, even some of the stuff, like it's inside you, you may not even know, and you don't even understand some of the things, that the actions that you're taking, the words that you're using, the systems you're creating are inherently biased and racist, and you have to acknowledge, do the work, understand, do the reading, and adjust your own.
I think the importance of dialogue and learning can't be understated here. We have to be self-reflecting. We have to be looking into ourselves, but then we also have to be learning. We have to be reading. We have to be, understanding other perspectives. We got to be having uncomfortable conversations. One of the best pieces of advice my father has ever given me was, Najeed, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because you're never going to grow, and you're never going to learn, and you're never going to better yourself unless you put yourself in those situations, right? And so I think all of us, if we want to protect America, if we want to protect Canada, we need to be doing that. And I think that's the piece that so many people are missing, that this isn't going to break America apart. It's going to bring it together. Being uncomfortable, making mistakes, building on change is actually going to be what saves the democracy, not fragments it. And I think that's a piece that a lot of folks need to come to terms with and then embrace.
I'm curious your perspective. I mean, we're in the States, and the light is on us, and you're in Canada, and it's been really cool seeing other countries come together and protest with us. So I felt for a while that America has this problem, this systemic problem of sweeping hard things under the rug. And I do think that
it's not just racism. There's tons of tough conversations that are
tons of stuff. Yeah, it's like parents just don't want to talk to their kids about the hard stuff, like, well, that feels uncomfortable. I don't want to talk. Is my kid old enough to talk about that yet? And I think it needs to start young. Is that pervasive throughout the culture in Canada too? I'm curious about your perspective on that in a different nation.
But yes. So, Canada is the greatest place in the world. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I love this country more than anything. They welcomed my family, my wife's family especially my wife's family, from some tough situations, and have opened our arms, and we've been able to thrive in this beautiful and amazing country. But, a big but, there is still so much work we have to do as a country. There are so many of these issues still exist, and I think it is arrogant for Canadians to paint ourselves as this great, wonderful, amazing antithesis to everything bad about America, because truthfully, that's not the truth. Like, we share the longest border in the world, and we are very culturally akin. Now, there are some differences, of course, but these challenges of, especially of racism and inequality, don't disappear north of the 49th parallel. They just don't. They just don't. I think we maybe are a couple of steps ahead, but maybe with some things, but maybe we're a couple steps behind with some things. I mean, the way that Canadians have treated our First Peoples, our Aboriginals and First Nations, and it's horrific. I mean, it is, if slavery is the United States' original sin, our treatment of our First Peoples is our original sin. It is horrific. And so we aren't looking in the mirror and saying, as a Canadian leader, we need to be open and have those conversations and be uncomfortable and start to make, steps to change. It's not different. Look, I live in a neighborhood that's, where I have had direct racism and indirect racism in my own neighborhood, walking down the street in a pretty, one of the nicest areas of Vancouver. And I'm a lawyer and I'm married to a lawyer, and, it's not, I come from so much community and privilege, and yet it still happens to me. So I'm like, you can't possibly, there's no grounding for it. There's nothing. It's just, it's there. There's not even any reason for it. You can't even rationalize it. It's absurd. And so if that exists there, I can't imagine what folks who don't have these kinds of opportunities and privilege have to go through. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. I'll just point out that.
No, to answer your question, no, we're not exempt from it. And coming together, the pain that America is feeling, the pain that Americans are feeling, is hopefully causing us to look at our own injustices, our own held biases, and address those and engage with them. Because, this is not an America problem. You folks are in the spotlight right now, but it's really not that different. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in no way, shape, or form would I say that we would say that slavery is the first. I mean, our treatments of our First Nations here is horrific. And I would say in many ways, we just obliterated,
Yeah, probably worse than we've done, but not that much worse. That's
it's not a contest. There's no winners and it's all losers, but I would say
we're all losers, exactly.
Slavery is obviously a different, past that we need to deal with here in this country, but we should never sort of ignore the fact that certainly
And what's interesting to me, and one of the questions, so the racism question, it's still there. That to me is like shocking. What I can't wrap my head around is why some people are unable to say the words Black Lives Matter. I actually don't understand. It's not like they're asking for Black people to be the ruling class. It's like, and flip history as much as maybe that's what should be due. It's not the case. It's like, of course, Black Lives Matter. What I can't get is, how is that hard to say out loud? It should be written on t-shirts, and the most white privileged folks need to be like, yeah, they do, because that's what leadership looks like.
Right.
I can't fathom it.
Well, it's because then they want to say all lives matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter, because all lives matter. You're like, no.
That's like saying strawberries taste good, all fruit tastes good.
Right.
One doesn't exclude the other. Black Lives Matter. This is about them right now. This is about our treatment as a society of them. Why is this about everybody else? Allow them to begin to heal and have those. I just can't understand.
I don't.
Let them have a moment.
Exactly. That's racism.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate demonstrator of just this problem.
Of you can't.
Nobody's saying other lives don't matter. This is not Black Lives Matter, comma, and nobody else's lives matter. No.
Right.
It's this is, it's absurd to me. But I think, but it's also exemplary of how little, despite these moments, despite all this, how little progress has been made.
Mm-hmm.
True. So maybe we can do. I guess.
I think one thing we can do is bring communities together and actually start conversations. And this is where the role of nonprofits is so important, and the role of bringing, at Keela, and I can say at Keela, we have thousands and thousands of people using our tools with thousands and thousands of opinions, by the way, right?
Yeah.
There are organizations that advocate for things that I don't agree with. But as long as they're doing it in a way that's not harmful and is peaceful and is ethically and morally sound, it is my duty as a leader of Keela to give them a platform to excel, because civil society is about dialogue, right? And I think it is the role of our sector to bring organizations together, to support them, to bring people together rather, and do that. And I think that's also an opportunity for inspiration. Like, we can do that as a sector. And I think we have a role to do that where maybe businesses and government are failing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be the change makers of the world, and what's been disheartening, and I think a lot of people are just still trying to find their words and trying to process things and figure out how to not come off as tone deaf in the wrong way. So I think there's a lot of fear holding people back from saying things. But at the same time, it's disheartening because, like, we are supposed to be the people that fight the good fight in our sector and make the change, and to see, you know, people struggle with silence in our sector is something that, you know, I'm hoping that conversations like this can help people overcome to make them feel more comfortable with talking about it.
And I think so
Jen
much of it
and
goes to fear, right? Like, fear is such a powerful driver. And you look at some, you know, I read some piece, I think on LinkedIn, where it was like, oh, corporations are scared to say something because they don't want to, you know, scare off their customers. Well, like, okay, but like, that's not good enough. And I think nonprofits have fallen prey to exactly the same thing. Oh, we don't want to scare our donors. Do you really want those donors anyway? Like, really? Right? Like, for every dollar you miss from those crazy racist people who can't say Black Lives Matter, you're going to gain from somebody who shares your values, who's inspired by your leadership.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep,
and to me, there are more important than retaining those racist donors, and this is one of them. I don't know how else to say it.
Right. How do you? Like, that's one of the things. Like, we specifically choose to work with progressive and left-leaning organizations and folks that are really working to create a more just and equitable world as a mission of our company. And I've struggled with, like, like I get like other folks that are more neutral, or then working with some of our software partners who, you know, very much have said to me, listen, I make software. Like, I can't decide who gets to use it and who doesn't get to use it. And I'm like, you kind of do, don't you? Like, you kind of, I mean, you could at least.
Look, I run a software company. I get the understanding, but I think the better answer is I have a platform to a whole group of people, a whole bunch of folks who may not think this way. And I want to open up the dialogue. I want to start the conversations. So maybe they'll go home to their dinner tables and talk to their 14-year-old daughter and say, what do you think about this? Or what are you feeling? Or maybe I've made a mistake, or, you know, whatever it might be. And so, and I don't think if you make good software, nobody's going to leave you because you say Black Lives Matter. It's like, and
if they do, okay,
you probably have bad software, and they shouldn't be a customer, like or both, you know. So you know, and I think having the conversation. So you said something that's interesting. You know, I want to dispel this idea that to be progressive and to be and supportive of Black Lives Matter, you have to be left leaning. Like, I don't think that's the case. Like, you could be a Fortune 500 and like Ben and Jerry's is like the most progressive capitalist company I've ever seen. They're amazing.
Yep.
The statement or whatever that their CEO put out, they're a B Corp like Keela is, and they make a whole ton of money. They drive a ton of value as shareholders, yet they like have good conversations. They you know, so this isn't about left or right. This is actually about right or wrong. And you can be really capitalist and you can be really socialist, and God bless you for all of those things, but you can't be racist. That to me, that's what you have to be, right? Not racist.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I love that. It's true.
Thank you for the
correction. It's not left or right. It's not red or blue. It's just right or wrong. ethics or not non-ethical.
Ironically,
You know,
it's
it's
black
like,
and white. This issue is
yeah,
black and white. No pun intended.
right.
Don't like so
Yeah.
so and I think leaders need to have more courage.
Yeah.
They need to have more
Yes.
conviction that doing the right thing will ultimately lead them to getting the best results. If you have great software, don't be scared to say Black Lives Matter. If you make great ice cream, don't be scared to say Black Lives Matter. If you make crappy ice cream and you need like racist people to buy your ice cream because they align with your values, make better ice cream. Like, I don't know what else to say.
I know.
You know,
It's true.
Yeah.
True.
and so
Yeah. And create the spaces. I think that's part of like get out there, be bold.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just come from that space where I'm like, I would never have a fear. I would also never choose to do something. And I know I've made my own path, and I feel lucky that it's been a, successful path, but to sort of say, I would not put myself in a position where I would be afraid to say Black Lives Matter in a way that I'd be like, oh, I'm going to have repercussions. Like I'm going to either lose customers or lose my job or be in a space that I would be at
you know
risk.
what's interesting? What does that say about the society we live in? If we say Black Lives Matters, customers are not going to come to us. Like that to me is the problem. Like it's both but it's like, can you? It's so, and it's interesting for me because I am not Black and yet a person of color. So I can kind of understand, but I don't understand it all, right? And so, and I think it was interesting. My son's godfather, he's Black. He's in Toronto, and I haven't spoken to him this week because we've texted, but we haven't had a conversation. But one thing, like this is a man I love like my own blood, and through texts, I have felt the heaviness of him. There's a folks in the Black community that are friends or colleagues or mentors, or there's a heaviness. And I think we got to be talking to our kids that that's okay to feel heavy, that it's okay. Taylor, you said today, I feel tired. A bunch of my staff at Keela on Monday texted me and was like, Najeed, I don't know why, I just feel tired. And it's almost like, but that's okay, And I think maybe you'll get a moment of raw emotion. And I'm going to call Kwaku this weekend and say to him, one, can we talk about this? Because if he doesn't want to, that's his, he's not, because he's Black, he doesn't have like a duty to talk about this. But a lot of people are assuming that, like, by the way, right? Like, and secondly, like, remind people in your communities who are feeling this more than we ever could. Just tell them you love them. Tell them you care about them. Tell them when they want to talk, if ever, you can always come to me. And I think we need to be telling our kids the same thing, right? I'm sure a ton of our kids are looking at this and they're confused, right? They're confused. I'm sure my son's 2 months. He doesn't understand the difference in this. But, I know you guys have kids that are 9 and 15 and whatever. They must be confused out of their minds. Like, so it's okay that they feel heavy. We're supposed to feel heavy, but out of that heaviness has to come action.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit before we wrap. The heaviness and how we can allow for that in our workspace too. I think that's one of the things that corporate America likes to sweep feelings under the rug. It's all about revenue, and it's the people that bring the revenue. So let's get real about that for a second. I cried on a team call today, like our entire team. I cried, and someone else on our team cried. And I feel like I'm in a safe space and am really blessed to be at a company that supports that. I was talking with a team member at the very beginning of the week, and he said, oh, I'm okay when I asked. And then he was like, wait a second, I'm not okay. And I said, no, not, and I'm not. And it's okay. We don't have to just say,
It's okay
which
not
is why
to be okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be okay. And we need to talk about that too, and let our staff and clients and people that we touch know that that's okay to not be okay, and to take a pause and to take a breath and to get introspective and to have the dialogue for a moment.
So
how are you
I'm going to start
facilitating
that
that?
conversation with a comment on leadership. And I'm young. I'm young in my journey. I've been leading teams for 20 years, but I'm not. It's not 50, it's not 60, it's not 70 yet. God willing, I'll get that opportunity. But one of the things I've learned in all these years is that your nonprofit, your company, your campaign, your sports team, for lack of a better word, is not about the leader. It's about the people it's about so, your company or your organization is as weak as its weakest link. And I know that sounds really cliche, but if, we don't take care of the folks that are making our organizations great, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, it really doesn't matter, right? We're not going to produce what we need to produce to be great as an organization, right? We're not going to drive more revenue or donations. We're not going to do better programming, whatever it might be. And so when your teams are hurting, the company is hurting. Human beings are not robots. We have feelings, we have emotions. We learn to compartmentalize them, and that's a good thing. But there are some things and some times where that's going to be too much. This seems to be one of those times, right? And so if you try to brush this under the rug, this moment, this pain, this heaviness, like you described it, Taylor, I think our staff are not going to produce anyway, right? Like if you got to, write an article and you just can't do it, you can't do it. You're either going to produce crap, which is probably worse than saying, I need some time. I need an extra day on this deadline. I need to take a personal day. I need to address my mental health. I mean, so many people so many CEOs or executive directors or whatever it might be, don't talk about mental health. We have physical sick days, but we don't have enough mental sick days. And this what's going on, the pain, the rawness, the realness of the struggles that so many people are opening their eyes to, no matter how late, they're still opening their eyes, is gonna cause pain. Mental health struggles, emotional challenges, heaviness, call it whatever the heck you want. But so I think as leaders, we have to understand that. That doesn't mean we're going to drive less revenue. I'm not saying make your goals or your targets less. I'm saying give your team space to achieve them in ways that are going to be realistic for them at this moment. Do 2 next week instead of 1 this week and 1, whatever. Every business organization is different, but I think we need to acknowledge the pain and we need to embrace it. And we need to encourage the dialogue amongst our staffs and saying, hey, look, this is what's happening. Here is education. Here is opportunity. Here are actions we can take and embrace it and engage them in what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think like when it's a different way to think about it, but definitely like the idea that I feel like there's a sense of obviously outrage and anger and just disbelief that so many people are just sort of waking up to the severity and the pervasiveness and all that level. That's where you're kind of like, okay, have that moment, take a breath, and then say, welcome, get in here, let's do this. Like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. It would have been better if you'd have been clued in all along, but at least you're waking up right now. So like, be pissed and be like, oh, but then be like, great, now you're here. Let's do this. Like, let's set that sort of disbelief aside for a minute and just be like, great, here's some resources, here's books, here's things you can do. And let's, just keep accepting the newcomers into the space of saying, great. And it takes all of us, to sort of say, great, welcome another person into the mix and say, great, the collective movement needs to keep growing. We can't let this just sort of fall off to, oh gosh, okay, anyway, I gotta get my kids going, blah, blah. And I honestly do think that there is a special moment in the pandemic where we actually don't have the ability almost to sort of go back to business as normal anyway. So hopefully, I guess that's my point where I've been like, maybe because we actually can't just immediately go back to brushing it all under and get back to our busy lives. Maybe, hopefully, that people
things have changed anyway. Like the reality is, so much has changed with this COVID stuff, and until we get a vaccine, it's probably going to continue to be pretty weird. and different and abnormal. We can't go back to business as usual. And so maybe we use this as an opportunity to make other changes too. Like, let's make the best of a really crappy situation.
I would hope. That's a
I
great.
mean, I'm looking for a bang up 2021.
But the thing is, we started this conversation with hope, and I think there can be hope. And I think it starts at our dinner tables, and we're forced to work at our damn dinner tables anyway right now. So let's
You're forced to show, like you're showing up, you're on a million Zoom calls, you don't look polished, it's not perfect, we're raw. It's things like we told
Taylor's never seen me not wearing a blazer, but I was like, today I just don't have it in me.
I was gonna say, I like the casual you. I like it. I like your shirt. I like that you're like, your hair's messy and you got a baseball cap on it, and that's good.
This is how I get. This is what I got. I'm showing up. But then the space of being able to allow people to be their own authentic selves right now in the COVID space is like, great, continue that.
Our own authentic selves, like embrace a new kind of authenticity, right? Like, and I think when you're not wearing makeup or a blazer or cufflinks or whatever you hide behind, and I hide too, right? You have an opportunity to, like, the honest is both. That's almost like a metaphor for what we can be presenting now, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's an opportunity, and this this maybe is hope. Then this is something better. This is, as long as we don't tuck it back under the rug, and I really do want to come back to that.
Right. I think the only thing I'm able to add to that is, like, don't be afraid to start a conversation you might have been afraid to start before, and just say, I'm going to say the wrong thing, and I don't know exactly the right way to approach this, but I'm going to say I'm coming from a good place, and I want to learn, and I want to get into the.
And it's okay to make mistakes, because you're going to make tons of them. I make them every single day. And so as long as we learn from them, right? My dad always used to say, sorry is a verb, not just it's a verb. You got to be sorry. You got to change your actions. And I think if we really do want to begin to address, and I don't want to say redress, because the past it's too broken. But if we want to take steps forward, then we have to learn from those mistakes with action.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
absolutely
a great on.
I think that's a good ending.
So.
I don't know how we can,
So,
by the way,
so I hope
one of my
everyone's
children
safe.
walk in and all this.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's part
I hope you guys stay safe.
You too.
And that
you too.
Hopefully everyone watching this conversation can allow themselves to make change that'll begin this healing process.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey.
Thanks for sharing time with
Thanks
us.
for your words.
Thanks
you for being the leader on this, and thanks for not wearing a suit today.
Thanks, Taylor. We'll talk to you soon.
No, really appreciate you. Bye.